everyone, and welcome to Turkey Courier. We're going to be talking about everything related to Turkish politics and economics. Hello, Erkin.
Hi, Sarp.
So, this week has been quite hectic for the entire news that we're covering. First up, the central bank governor has been taken from his position, and following that, the economics minister, Berat Albayrak, has left a very touching resignation letter. Can you give us some brief background on what the hell is going on in Turkish economics and Turkish economic management?
Sure. So as always, this week has been very hectic for Turkey, and the people in Ankara have been very perplexed, as with people of Turkey has been in terms of economics policy. So this week, central bank's governor was taken from his office. That was seen to be as some sort of a shift in policymaking. They were thinking of that was going to happen because the Turkish lira has been losing a lot of value. But then, again, I think at some late evening hours, I think it was around 8 p.m. or so on Sunday evening, Berat Albayrak, Minister of Economics and Treasury, announced on Instagram with a very terrible Turkish that he was resigning from his position, and he actually didn't use the word resign. We're also going to talk about this. It has been very perplexing, and it took the AKP government, Erdogan's government, 27 hours to confirm his resignation. And after that, they didn't even use the word resignation. They used the word that Erdogan has accepted Albayrak's request for relieving of his duties. Again, that was very much showing that the new presidential system in Turkish politics they've been trying to make it take hold, but it's been failing so miserably because the government spokesperson came up and basically said nothing about Albayrak's resignation. And then people asked about it, of course, the press asked about it, and he said, this is not under our mandate, this is under the mandate of Mr. Erdogan, who is the president. And then it took them 27 hours to accept that he was accepted. His plea of relieving of the duty was accepted. This is again showing us the interesting mood in Ankara's policymakers. I think we are going to see what has happened behind the closed doors. But I think there are several options. One is that there has been a growing fight between Süleyman Soylu, the interior minister, who has his own base in AKP electorate, and Albayrak, who was the groom of Erdogan's daughter. So the fight between these two has been intensifying in the last several months, and people have been seeing it as some sort of win for Soylu. And also there has been this very undeniable fact that Turkish lira has been losing a shitload of value, and this is not sustainable at all. So we are going to see next week, I think it was on 12th of November, we're going to have the monetary policy meeting, and we will see whether they will increase the policy rate, interest rate. I think they will be increasing it more than 200 basis points. That will be more than 2% to hold and actually increase the value of Turkish lira, which has been losing a lot of value. I think it has been up to 40 or 45% since the starting of the year.
And the big question here is, do you think the central bank's governor's relieving of his position, and of course followed by Mr. Albayrak, do you think it had more to do with the way economics policy is shaped and the future of it, or do you think it is more due to an internal power struggle?
I think the latter is more correct to say, because we know that Erdogan has been calling the shots for a long while now, and they have been putting the employment and inflation, etc., much in front than the value of the lira. And I think now they have been trying to find a scapegoat, and now I think they're also trying to show at least international investors that Turkey has been going back to the orthodox policy of monetary policy making. But I think they have learned, I'm hoping that they have learned enough that this would not hold. We need to see some definite action. We need to see some interest rate hikes in order to hold the value of Turkish lira. And if they just, again, stop short of doing this, we will continue to see the slide in Turkish lira's value.
And as a funny side note, when the seat of economics minister was empty, Turkish lira actually regained some of its value back. So
around 5% actually.
yeah, exactly. All right.
It was crazy. So an empty seat has been making much better gains in terms of policy objectives than actual ministers. It's amazing. Like you can call this AI, advanced AI or something. I don't know how other else you interpret it. Yeah.
All right, moving on to yet another very interesting news. Armenia has just announced its surrender in Nagorno-Karabakh clashes. The deal has been set mostly by Russia, dictated mostly by Russia, and it's a very interesting turn of events in the Caucasus region. What do you think about the deal? What do you think it's going to lead into? And what do you think made Armenia realize that theirs was an untenable position?
Well, actually, it took, I think, Armenia much longer to realize that it has been losing. It didn't need this much advance on the Azerbaijani side. So Azerbaijani army this week captures Susha, also called Sushi in Armenian, which is a very strategic choke point in Karabakh region. And I think it took the Armenian side too long to realize that this was going to happen. And after Shusha, probably the next step will be Stepanakert, Hankendi in Azerbaijani, and then on maybe even an incursion into Armenia proper. So actually Pashinyan announced that it has been made to sign a very hard to sign document, which was brokered by Russia. We don't actually know the details of the deal yet, the precise details. We have heard that Turkish and Russian armies are going to hold mutual peacemaking operations in the region, and we have heard also they will be on the ground for 5 years unless renewed. So this shows again some sort of a policy gain on policy objectives grounds for Turkey, because Turkey has been wanting to be much more present in the deal making, in the negotiation side of the peace process between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and they have been providing a lot of weapons and arms to Azerbaijan, which was very, very important in Azerbaijani victory. The drones, for example, which is produced in Turkey by Bayraktar family. And so Turkey has gained this deal, this gamble. It has been the second foreign policy gain of this year after so many years, first being Libya and second being Azerbaijan. So I'm hoping that the civilian deaths stop and then they come to a viable solution, that this frozen conflict is solved for once and for all. I'm not sure if this will be the case, but Azerbaijani side being stronger militarily and economically, I think this deal might have more chances of holding in the ground.
There are a couple of things that I want to uncouple. First of all, Azerbaijani side said that Turkey and Russia will host the peacekeeping mission, whereas the Russian side said it will be Russia only that hosts the peacekeeping mission. I don't know if this is official, but again, these are some of the things that I heard. And on top of that, again, correct me if I'm citing unofficial sources, but apparently Armenia guaranteed a land highway connection between Nakhchivan, the stranded Azerbaijani Autonomous Republic deep in the Armenian territory, and Baku. So this is, if you ask me, a very long-lasting foreign policy gain, if indeed an official article of the treaty. What do you think?
Well, the first one, I think the reason behind Russia saying it's going to be Russia only is because of the public backlash in Armenia. People in Armenia have been storming the government offices, etc., against Pashinyan's government, and I think Russia has been trying to keep the public order in Armenia, in case declaring that Turkey will be on the ground. It might also provide another backlash, because we also know, I've been saying this for a long while now, both Azerbaijan and Armenia are very much partisan. They are not acting very rationally. So I think it might be a good way of tackling the problem. Second, I heard of the corridor, but not from official sources yet. It might be true, but these corridors tend to fail in the long run, because you have a lot of sovereignty questions. So for example, will the passage of goods, passage of people in this corridor be dictated by Armenia, because sovereignty-wise, it should be so.
Yeah.
So this is why usually the corridors fail, and I think if that is the case, then we will also have another reason to continue the conflict, because I'm sure there will be some border friction between those regions, and there will be another reason for either Azerbaijan or Armenia to just start over with the conflict.
All right, moving on to yet another drastic shift in Turkish foreign policy situation. The US presidential elections. It seems that everybody accepted that Biden has won, although not without some contentions from the Trump side at least. And Biden, by citing the video that became quite popular just a couple of months ago, was at least quite vocal about his opposition to Erdogan's government. And his foreign policy advisors seem quite anti-Turkey, especially when it comes to their dealings with the Kurdish movement down south. So what do you think we're going to see in a Biden presidency?
Well, I don't think we're going to see much beauty developing between the US and Turkey relations in the Biden presidency, because the Democrats and the electorate that they serve has, with some agreeable terms, with some reasons that I can understand, are opposing the Turkish government and Erdogan because of also the media coverage, etc. And also in Pentagon, as far as I can see, there is a growing anti-Turkey movement in contrast with NATO. And Biden, we also know what Biden thinks about Turkey, Erdogan, and our foreign dealings, etc. And actually, just make a link back to another topic that we were talking about. People have been saying that this Al-Bayrak and central bank swap, they have been linking it with Biden presidency. They have been saying that Turkey has been taking position for a Biden presidency term. I think foreign policy-wise, this will be a time that Turkey will need to decide. We will need to decide whether we will stand with Russia, whether we will stand with the US. We cannot be in the middle, just like when we were doing in Trump's era. At least that's what I think. That also has to do with, I'm not sure how much of a hold they will have in internal politics, like the Biden presidency. That will dictate the conditions. But I think my expectations from Biden presidency is not great for Turkey. I think it holds great risks for overall. You might be eventually able to see the sanctions that have been talked about for too long, about S-400s, the Russian land-to-air missiles. And I think nothing beautiful is coming towards us. As a Turkish person, I can say this. Of course, depending on the hold of Biden in the US politics.
Slightly following up with what you said about Al-Bayrak being linked to this, with just a small, very minor detail. The next Minister of Economics in Turkey, he's actually graduated from the same university as Biden did. I don't know if this is just a minor historical, funny little accident, but it could also, just as you said, a way to signal to Biden that, yes, we are willing to come to terms with a Biden presidency. And this, again, would mean at least a grand shift in Turkish foreign policy in terms of our dealings with Russia.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the economics minister now is pretty much a nobody. He's a bureaucrat, basically. And basically,
I agree.
Not so many people know about him. I'm not sure how much of a real power he will hold, apart from like executing Erdogan's orders. But today, actually, the governor of central bank, Naci Ağbal, made a speech that was much more resemblant of a central bank governor compared to the others. And this is actually empowering the Turkish lira also. This has been also making like foreign investors gain more of a trust towards Turkish economy. We will see about the execution. I doubt the execution will be as perfect as the speech was. As always, you have this problem. But then, yeah, I'm not sure how much of a real impact this guy will have. But yeah, still, it's some sort of saying like, "Hi, hey, we still friends?" Yeah.
Okay, moving on to an issue that's been dragged out for too long, Idlib. The Turkish armed forces have definitely pulled back, strategically at least, pulled back beyond the M4 highway, and they seem to be not fortifying, but settling in that position just to completely draw where the border lies. I think this, and just as you said in our newsletter, this is going to be the line Turkish officials have drawn, and this is the line that Turkish public has to pay for if they don't want 3 million refugees coming inside Turkey. I think I said pretty much everything that you said on the newsletter. Is there anything that you would want to add?
Not really. This was just like a bullet point that we can just go through. Yeah, but you did great. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to something new. The Turkish government announced that they are going to be presenting social media companies with increasingly rising fines unless they have a representative, as it was outlined in Turkish law. Do you think this is just a means of making sure that social media companies answer to the Erdogan regime, or do you think this is just a way of legislating a brand new frontier in media, legislating and taxing?
Well, taxing part, they have already been successful. So they requested that they pay taxes in Turkey, and they actually started doing so. I think since this April or so, at least for advertising. Google and Facebook and Instagram have been paying all these taxes, and now what they want is like have a local office and a local representative in Turkey, so that they could have a contact person to reach to, and for deleting, for suspending accounts, etc., which takes much longer time and is under different mandates and different constitutions in other countries. So this will be another way of controlling the social media, which has a lot of power in Turkey. And this is not a new phenomenon. I think this could be a very good master's thesis, for example, if you're interested, Sarp. A lot of countries have been, actually this started with Chinese President Xi Jinping defining a concept called national sovereignty on internet. I think he called it online sovereignty or something like that. So like now more and more the autocratic regimes and all these countries have been defining the internet spaces as their national sovereignty, and they have sovereign rights over their internets, which should be, I think, scaring all of us, because yeah, I know what my government could do with the internet. I know what Chinese government could do with the internet, and it's not fancy. It's not nice. I would not recommend anyone to have such an internet. I wouldn't pay for such an internet.
Moving on to another foreign policy issue. It seems that the Turkish government has actually gotten something out of the Libya gamble. It seems, as you wrote in the newsletter, the Turkish government will have a seat in the talks and will have an official military presence in Libya. Would you like to give some background on that?
Yeah, sure. So the Libyan civil war has been going on for, I think it has been 9 years or so. They have reached a ceasefire, and now they have 5+1 military council, which has 5 people from Tobruk government and 5 people from Tripoli government. And it seems this council has decided that Turkish army officials should remain on Libya, and the assistance should remain also for Tripoli government. And I think this shows the first policy game for Turkey, as I outlined before. We have intervened into Libyan conflict, and I was thinking at later stages of Libyan conflict, after the ceasefire, basically, that Turkey will also again be sidelined. But it doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be Turkey has been gaining power and like withholding that power in Libya. We will see, because these periods tend to be tend to have a lot of ups and downs in the process. You never know when the war resumes again. Some other parts makes a coup and kills the others, etc. So it is still not set, because this is not a democracy, or this is not in the constitution or in the law. It is just basically brute force that makes sure that you're there. If the Tripolitan government would be sure that they would not be killed, they would not be sidelined, then they would not, of course, ask for Turkish military help.
Of course.
Yeah.
This time we're going to EU. Macron has asked for a Islamic reform, and apparently an Islamic power has concurred with his ideas, this Islamic power being the United Arab Emirates. Why is United Arab Emirates the black sheep of the family? What is going on there?
Well, yeah, I have been following this quite closely, and it's a very interesting thing that what strategic gains and realpolitik can make you do with your principles. So, like, these countries have always been seen by the other Muslim countries, also Europeans as well, as very conservative people. Like in the UAE, it was not easy to find alcohol. People would not feel very, like, tourists would have to wear some veils and they would have their separate beaches, etc. And now they've been legislating all these things, and a person working for the government comes up and says, yeah, I agree with French government. Islam does need reform. This kind of thing, if Arabia, which is equally likely to say this, I think, in terms of strategic gains, would, I think, get some very harsh punishment before. But now that their interests are aligning, and as I said before many times in the newsletter, these countries are not democracies. They are not very much bound with the public opinion, and they also have these petrodollars with which they can subsidize the people livings and making pretty much everything free for everyone, so everyone's happy basically. And we're also seeing this conundrum, like these are the lands that Islam was born from, and they have always been they're priding themselves with this fact. And now we see that the conditions change, the natural resources come in, the petrodollars come in, and the strategic interest goes the other way, and then you see this mishmash. And it's essentially, I was thinking, history is an amazing thing. Like there's nothing more, like even science fiction movies would not come close to this in the wildest dreams.
Yeah, it's honestly quite interesting to see out of everyone, United Arab Emirates being okay with such a statement. Anyway, there's just one last bullet point remaining, which is the Turkish Airlines losing massively, as did a lot of other airlines. But in Turkish Airlines case, I don't think they got that much of a Corona dollar subsidies. What do you think?
Well, yeah, they haven't. They lost a lot of money, of course. There has been talks about Turkish wealth funds intervening. I'm actually expecting that to happen soon enough. Because it seems coronavirus is going to be with us for a while now. I don't think these new vaccine development is going to reach every part of the globe, and this is going to at least stay with us until the 2021 probably spring. So I think they might need some cash injection from the wealth fund. So that's what I'm expecting.
Well, this was pretty much it from this week. A very busy week, a very interesting week, right? Thank you everyone for listening. Erkin, do you have any final words?
Well, we haven't been doing this very frequently. We're not doing this very systematically, at least. I would like to apologize from our audience. But some weeks we don't have much to talk about, but you have weeks like this in which I could have talked about these things for 5 hours or so. We've been trying really hard to make it smaller in the bite-sized pieces. So yeah, I'm sorry if you have been waiting for the next episode, but you haven't seen it. But there you have it. You can enjoy this for a couple of weeks to come, especially if you're watching this from the European countries where I guess nothing on this scale happens in a week. But yeah, thank you for listening, and thank you, Sarp, for your very valuable questions.
Thank you for both the newsletter and your very keen examination of the Turkish politics. See you everyone next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.